Welcome to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand with Nicholas Kuhner. This week's guest is Mark Elwood, not your average productivity guru. He's the founder of Pace Productivity, a consultancy that's been helping businesses squeeze real value out of their time and teams for over 25 years. But what sets Mark apart isn't just his longevity in the game, it's his no-fluff, data-led approach to time management. From working with Fortune 500 companies to coaching overwhelmed founders, Mark has built a reputation as the guy who turns chaos into clarity. But his work isn't about working faster, it's about working smarter, with purpose, and on what actually moves the needle. So if you've ever felt like your calendar is running your life or your team is busy but not productive, this episode is what you need to hear. And we'll be talking about research and a couple of other nice things. So, Mark, welcome.
Great to be here.
So we were chatting a little bit before we started about some interesting research that you're doing, and my nose was put out a little bit because the results don't put us men in the best light, do they?
Well, sure. It shows that women are better at managing their time in the workplace than men.
Lies,
To
lies, all
talk about
lies.
that, well, to talk about that, I got to back up a little bit. So, and we can go into this in more detail. I invented a small electronic device called a TimeCorder. I have 400 of those. I lend those out to organizations. Employees use them to track their time. They love doing it. And so I've amassed over 35 years, I've amassed a lot of data about time use in the workplace. So that's my bona fides, as they say.
So when they're putting in their details, you've now obviously segmented your mark, your your target audience into male, female, probably age groups in that. I think all of us know that women are slightly more organized than us. So was this a big shock to you? What is the point of this research?
Well, you say we know,
Okay.
but do we really? I mean, there's sort of a gut feel, or we made some observations. And, a lot of the time management books kind of are based on that. It's like, well, I had this observation, or I tried this myself, and so on. And there's a lot of fine advice in there. And it's based on years of credible consulting or whatever. But I've always been a data guy. I like it when you can support your conclusions with data. We talk about facts and fake facts and so on. Well, I like real facts. And so that's where I looked at the results. You mentioned splitting the database. So I don't have a whole lot of demographic information. I've got company information. I've got what kind of employee there are. But when employees participate in these studies, they don't give me their age or how many kids they have or their life satisfaction scores. So I'm somewhat limited. But I went through the whole database and I separated men in one and women in the other. So Susan, that's a woman, and Martin, that's a man. And there were some other names I didn't know, so I kind of put them aside. So I created two databases out of one and started comparing. What we know for sure, because I go to a lot of time use conferences, what we know for sure is that women at home are more responsible, at least from a time use standpoint, more responsible for domestic chores than men. So they're doing more cooking, cleaning, shopping, and of course, childcare. So I thought, all right, well, what do we know about the workplace? Because the time use studies that people do don't tend to focus much on the workplace. I do. So I thought, well, let's see what kinds of patterns are there. And so I guess I was a little surprised. One of the four major findings is that women work fewer hours. Now, these are knowledge workers. They're people who are doing service work, or they're managers, or they're salespeople, and so on. They're not out doing retail work or construction work or that sort of thing, although we've got some construction supervisors. And so they work fewer hours. So the average is about 46 hours per week. And that includes some personal time, because if you're in the workplace, well, you got to take lunch. And so you're kind of there at work, or maybe you don't, because it tends to be quite short. But including those personal hours, the total is about 46 hours per week. Men are at 48 hours. Women are only at 45 hours. So they're spending fewer hours to do their jobs than the men are.
So, what are the practical applications of this? Because having data is lovely, having results is good. What do you think we can extrapolate out of this, or what would you like to see happen now that this data you've arrived at this at these data points, Mark?
I guess the more telling one is the second finding, and this is quite profound in time management. And let me take a little bit to explain. If you read time management books, they talk about working on your important activities, but nobody really defines what those are. There's something called the Eisenhower matrix, which talks about urgent and important. You should be focused on your important but non-urgent activities. But again, those aren't really well defined. So I thought, I wonder if I could define those. So it just happens that I ask people participating in these studies, what are the most important things you need to do in your job? And so salespeople will say they have to process orders, they have to service customers, but more than anything else, they say they have to prospect and get new business. All right, so that's a salesperson. So I looked at 13 major jobs and looked at what they were telling me they were supposed to be doing, and then mapped that against what they were doing with their time. And I found out that on those top priority activities, the average is only 20%. And so women are spending a greater percentage of their time on those top priority activities, 22%, and men only at 18. So regardless of men versus women, if the average is only 20%, you asked what should we do? Well, it's important for organizations to get those numbers up higher. How can you get people spending 30% of their time on their top priority activities? So to answer your question, you do that through better training. You do that by delegating tasks, by outsourcing, by reducing all the administrative time that a lot of these folks have to work on. I've come to the conclusion recently that companies don't care that much. The thing is, if people are working 46 hours or some overtime, they're working 50 or 55 hours, that's free labor for companies. And they're going, well, why do we have to do this, Mark? Because we're getting all this free labor from people, that is salaried people. And the response is, sure, but you've got turnover because people aren't happy. You've got stress because they're working these long hours and not getting the time to spend at home. And you've got other mental health challenges, alcoholism, whatever. So it's in companies' interest to allow people to focus their time on what matters most, reduce those overtime hours, and reduce the administrative burden that's a lot of people face.
It's a tough one when it comes into business, because in industries where you are clocking in how many widgets, you clock in at X time, you make X amount of widgets, they can kind of see how many widgets you made this hour versus that day, etc. But when we go into the service economy, obviously we're looking at things like how many leads, how many customers you've dealt with. But those aren't necessarily, how long is a piece of string. Certain leads are going to take you a longer time. Certain customers are more complicated. You've dealt with time management for quite a few years. What are some of the big mistakes that companies are making in terms of their time management of staff, do you think?
Some people use the term wasted time, and I don't like that too much. And there is some pure waste when people are running their businesses from as an employee, or they're not showing up. They show up late or whatever. But it's interesting when you ask people about the things that get in the way of their productivity. It's often not the employee themselves. Sure, they procrastinate a little bit. Sure, they're a little disorganized, but rather it's the forces imposing on them. The other department didn't do their work. Their boss keeps changing direction. They weren't trained properly on how to do the task they're supposed to be doing. So the message to organizations is, if you want to reduce so-called waste, sure, train people to be better time managers, but also look at all those other forces that are affecting them and reduce those. Make sure the other departments are communicating well and getting their tasks done. Make sure you're not throwing them back and forth to different tasks all the time. That's quite profound in terms of thinking about value-added time.
And I suppose that comes down to the quality of the manager as well. Do you think time management, or whatever phrase or terminology you would use for it, is being taught enough to managers and when should that be taught to them? Because I've dealt with a lot of people who have sort of been jumped up a couple of levels too high and are not good managers because they don't know how to manage their time.
Yes. So we talk about time management. People say, oh, you can't manage your time. We all have 24 hours. For me, time management is kind of an umbrella, and there's a number of personal skills that fall under that umbrella. Goal setting, daily planning, email communication, meeting management, overcoming procrastination, and a couple of others as well, filing, whatnot. So it's a collection of personal skills. And we kind of assume that people are pretty well organized. And, to have graduated from university or to have had that previous job, you probably were a pretty good time manager at some of those things. Nonetheless, in this organization, these are the challenges we face. And so I would suggest that some training on one or more of those skills is important. Let's take email, for example. We kind of assume that everybody knows how to use email, and it's a terrific productivity tool. When I started, it didn't exist, and it made communication so much better. But get this, we ask people, not always, but we ask them to measure how much time they spend on unnecessary email. In their opinion, what's unnecessary? Now, we measure the other emails separately. Unnecessary email, it's 3.4 hours per week. That's massive. And so why is that? Well, it's because someone received an unnecessary email. But everybody blames somebody else. No one takes responsibility. The first thing is that everyone has to assume some responsibility. We're all responsible for badly written emails or too many emails or communication that doesn't work and so on. And so we're all going to take that responsibility and learn some better techniques for email management, meeting management. Oh, I hated that meeting. Oh, that meeting was horrible. I have a basic principle about that. Anybody who goes to a meeting has the right and the responsibility to improve the dynamics of the meeting. Maybe you are not going to be the decision maker. Maybe you're not setting the agenda, but you can ask for an agenda. You can ask for how we're going to make a decision. You can ask for clarity on the decision that was made that you're not actually quite sure what was decided. So, no one should go to a meeting and say it was a bad meeting. It's because you didn't make a difference. So we can train people on better meeting management, how to intervene and how to run meetings when they're in charge.
Yeah, I don't know how many years of people's lives have been wasted going into meetings where they've just kept their mouth. When it comes to time management individuals, this is a slight tangent. Some people work very well in short bursts and are very productive, and other people are more languid and can be effective over a longer period of time. Have you seen any companies that have actually taken this into consideration, or is that split into like salespeople versus administrative staff? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can tell you what the data says, and just in terms of frequency of activities. So, here's the TimeCorder device again. You work on activity letter A, which is travel or something, and B, which is writing a report, and so on. As you begin each activity, you press a different button. Dead simple to use. A little less complicated to use than a doorbell. So it's tracking the frequency of activities in addition to the total time and time of day. But frequency, so if you spent 10 hours doing sales calls and you made 10 calls, then each one, by virtue of that, is an hour long. So we can look at the duration of activities. Turns out the average is about 18 minutes. Women are at 16 minutes, men are at 22 minutes. So women are getting things done faster in shorter bursts of attention than men. But we measure all kinds of different activities, meetings that run for an hour or sales calls that last 5 minutes. So there's no, set number because they're doing so many different types of things. But in terms of that duration, certainly the shorter the duration, the better all other things being equal. And I say that because on a sales call, sometimes you need the depth of the call to be able to ask good questions, to probe for needs, to make your presentation, overcome objections, and so on. You don't want sales calls to be too fast, but nonetheless, women are doing all kinds of different activities in a shorter duration than men. So good for them.
In terms of measuring what matters, because it's very important. You can only manage things if you can measure it, basically. In your experience, how many, if, and again, unless you're a production company doing widgets and perhaps having a call center, how many companies are actually tracking timing of activities, and what should managers or organizations be tracking versus just clocking in the morning and clocking out in the afternoon?
Well, there's different types of tracking. So there are people who get hourly paid. I work as a part-time ski instructor, and I got to track, log in the morning and out the end of the day. And whenever time I log in and out, I'm actually paid for like a 6-hour shift or something. So I just want to confirm that I did show up on time. So there's that kind of tracking. Then there's employees who are doing something similar where they actually are tracking the number of hours. Like my 6 hours was set in advance, but how many hours did the employee put in? He's punching a time clock. There's other organizations in the service world where they're billing by the hour. And so that's lawyers and accountants and so on. And they're using software or their watch or whatever they're using, and they're billing the client accordingly. And they might have their own formulas as to how that works. I spent 5 minutes on the phone with you. Well, I'm going to bill you for a quarter of an hour for that because I do that in quarter-hour segments. So they're using some stuff. Turns out, in terms of the diagnostic studies that I do, they're not that common. What happened during COVID is there was a lot of employee monitoring to see all these employees who were working at home if they were actually doing things. So they were measuring keystrokes or websites visited, or was their computer on, or whatever. And employees didn't like that, nor do they like any kind of time tracking. It's seen as sort of big brother, and I should be able to organize my day as I like. So in our case with the TimeCorder, and listen, I don't have franchises on every street corner. It's not that popular. And because of that fear that sometimes happens when someone calls me to hire me, they go, are our employees going to like that? Well, it turns out they do like it. And if you treat your employees well, you'll get great cooperation. We make it easy. I don't want to sound like this is a pitch, but we make it easy to use the device. It gives instant feedback, but above all, the results are anonymous. And when you promise employees, we don't care who's what, we're tracking 30 or 40 or 50 of you, and we're averaging your results. That's what really gets them interested. And you get a lot of honest results. So time tracking has different uses and means. I would say if you're going to do one of these diagnostic studies, write it down on paper, use a TimeCorder, use a spreadsheet, whatever you want. I mean, hire me or maybe, but only do it for a short period of time, because that's all you need is a short 2-week stint is normally what I suggest we do.
Excellent. Now, I was having a look at a marvelous book called The Poetic Path to Getting More Done by Mark Elwood. Could you maybe talk a little bit about
Yeah, it's books. It's here. I started trying to
slower?
sell them.
That nobody could see that. You switched it
Sorry,
in
that
front
was
of it
rather
very
quick.
quickly. There we go. There we go.
I tried selling these and it didn't work too well, so I just kind of get them out at workshops and so on. I'm a poet, and so I was writing some tweets when tweets were 140 characters. I thought, well, I'll do a little rhyming couplet, and I started doing more and more of those. And I thought, well, maybe I could do a whole book. And so it's a book of time management poems, all in rhyming couplets. And sometimes at my workshops, doing a poem is kind of a nicer way to communicate an idea. And if you'd like, I could do the goal setting poem for you. Would
Go
you like
ahead.
to hear that?
Yes, please.
Okay. So in goal setting, we talk about the SMART formula, SMART, and is an effective way to think about how you formulate your goals. So I did that in poetic form. Know what you want and set a clear goal. Then start taking action and get on a roll. An acronym spells out a goal that is SMART. Just SM and A, then RT to start. Avoid being vague as you aim for specific. Be selective as well and not too prolific. Nothing is trivial. Be substantial and clear. Be sure to aim high as you plot out the year. Measurable goals have a number you set, a quantified score that you haven't reached yet. Appropriate goals are ones you can match. With your background and skills, you won't start from scratch. A realistic target should always be sought, bit of a stretch, but not a long shot. Fix a date to achieve what you set out to do. Establish a time when you will be through. Objectives, intentions, commitments to meet, destinations, ambitions, and targets to beat. Commit to start now. Don't ever despair. The goal is your endpoint. It leads you somewhere. Bring passion to bear on what you pursue. Decide to excel in all that you do. Set a goal for today, this week, or this year. Pursue to the finish. You'll have reason to cheer. A whole book of those.
Now, I lecture in digital marketing here in Norway, and we were going through SMART, and I was forgetting each one. I always had to ask the class, okay, what is the R? What is the A
Well, okay,
again?
I do them a
And
little bit different. So I'll just go through those.
and this was marvelous. So I'd love to, but we'd have to do it in Norwegian though.
Well, just very briefly, some people use A and R for attainable and realistic. And I thought, well, that's kind of the same. So I changed the A from attainable to appropriate. And really what that's saying is, based on your skills, your background, is this appropriate for you? If the sales department's trying to sell more stuff and accounts receivable is trying to reduce bad debts, maybe those aren't appropriate to each other. Or my best example, I was training with my wife to run a marathon. We did these long, slow runs every Sunday and some other stuff as well. But I'm a squash player. You need quick twitch muscles on the squash court. So training for a marathon is not appropriate for training for a squash court. There's different types of muscles. And so as you set your goals to run a marathon in 5 hours or achieve some goals in squash, you've got to make sure those goals are appropriate to each other.
Yeah, and I suppose it's bringing those real life examples or attaching those real world examples to each of those acronyms that just makes it sort of come home. And some people learn and understand better through rhyme, like you've done it. And I mean, at school we do that. You'll have
Yep.
your A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So there's a way that we learn it, and I think there's a place for the. That's why I wanted to touch on this. There's a place for using word games and for using rhyme and music. So I think you should be doing a whole bunch of TikToks with those, because I think
Well,
those work
yeah,
really well.
maybe I will. I did something else as well, very briefly, because you talk to entrepreneurs. So I thought, well, can we get the workshop attendees to make their own poems? So I created this carbonless form. Now, carbonless, when you write on the top, you flip the page and it writes through. Forms like FedEx forms are still made that way. So I created this, and so on the second page, as you wrote the first, it would create a little rhyming couplet. And my nephew said, you should do that online, of course. So, very long story short, I created a website called makemeapoem.com, and there's about 7 different types of poems, including time management. But you can write a love poem for somebody, and basically you answer some questions, and then the thing creates a poem for you. Well, I did that before ChatGPT, and so now you get that to make the poem. So it got a little bit clobbered. But here's the thing. If you want to write a love poem for your partner, you really should tell it, ChatGPT, you should tell it that, well, she plays tennis, she's a good cook, she's good with children, and we like going to movies together. I mean, you're going to have to tell it those things. My thing on Make Me a Poem asks you those questions. So it asks you those prompts and creates, well, there's 5 billion possibilities for the poem. So I've used those in workshops as well. Not the love poem, but the one on time management. And there's another one on giving appreciation to fellow employees. And I pair people off in my workshops and have them write an appreciation poem for each other is quite fun. So that's another little invention of mine, where people can create their own poems.
I love that. I'm a big fan of Edward Lear, and I've read, because his work is out of copyright now. I've done quite a few recordings on The Owl and the Pussycat and the a whole bunch of others, which I love, and I read them to my kids. And I've used ChatGPT to create drawings of those particular limericks as well, because they're just wonderful.
What
Now,
fun. Well, you've got a lovely, beautiful voice, so those would be fun to hear by you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Now, where can I send folks to find a little bit more information about you? Number one, about your research. I'm sure there are folks out there who would be interested, perhaps HR departments and people who are into data might be interested in that. And then also perhaps on, and I think it's important to mention your books, so the Poetic Path to getting things done, and that you do this for a living. You go and speak to people about time management and how to improve their lives, basically.
Well, I don't want to give 13 different ways for people to reach me because I'm a guy that likes to be focused and productive. So, of the different websites I have, the main one is getmoredone.com. Pretty easy, getmoredone.com. And there's a contact page, and you can contact me through that if you'd like to receive one of my articles about how to prioritize your time. Then I'd be delighted to send you that article. And or it's one of the other research papers. There's a number of them that I've done. Some of them are on that website. Other ones I can send to you.
Yeah, that's getmoredone.com, and there's lots of nice things here. There's also some more information on your TimeCorder, so from your inventor, obviously very industrious. So, Mark, thank you so much for your time, and good luck with the marathons, and I hope your knees hold out a couple more years for that squash.
Absolutely.
I really do appreciate your comments, so why not go and watch this live on YouTube? Or go to my website, kuhne.no, that's kuhne.no, for more information.